Northern KwaZulu-Natal, picturesque Lake Jozini backed by the 𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗀 Mountains, a little slice of paradise with unique biodiversity. This serene environment is now a crime scene, with armed gunmen in hiding, a conservation community on knife's edge, and a tourism sector buckling under pressure. These breathtaking scenes concealing a dark secret. In January, a tourist viewing boat was attacked by a group of gun-wielding men on the eastern shores of the dam in broad daylight. Elephant monitor 𝗀𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗀 was on the boat that day with international tourists.
You just hear that panic in their voices. The top deck started screaming, there's people with guns, they're aiming at us, they're aiming at.
2 shots were fired, and then 2 more. This clip is of the boat trying to escape the gunmen. The boat beat a desperate retreat. The guests cowering amid the gunshots. They emerged unhurt, but traumatized.
They came to Africa for a beautiful African experience, and they were actually confronted with the most terrifying moment of their lives.
What has emerged is that the tourists were not the target. They were just inconvenient witnesses. The target of the criminality here is the environment. It's been reported that 2 elephants were shot that day, 3 more the next. This criminality is mainly on the eastern bank of the Jozini Lake, where Mozambique, Eswatini and South Africa meet. But these were not the first elephants to be killed in the area, and they will not be the last. This is the inevitable path of a tragedy years in the making, beginning where nature and humans collide. In September 2022, 46-year-old 𝗶𝗶𝗴𝗶𝗀 was trampled by an elephant. As is tradition in Zulu culture, Bheki is buried alone because his unnatural death is considered a bad omen. His father, 𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗆𝗀, kneels close to his son's grave and introduces me to his son's spirit. It's rare for a TV crew to be allowed to visit a grave like this. It's clearly not easy for Nyawo, as he's still struggling to come to terms with his son's sudden death. Looking back, it seems a tragedy was inevitable, with the elephants crossing paths with cattle and humans more regularly. The solution, he says, is simple. Historically, the land's been used by the local community for cattle grazing, but it belongs to 𝗀𝗵𝗀𝗆𝗀 Wildlife, and it is a proclaimed protected area. 𝗀𝗲𝗍 is from the organization's conservation services, responsible for managing the land that's in dispute.
The amount of cattle that were being put there, the livestock, were not of significant impact or adverse impact to biodiversity. But that was not to say that it was legal for communities to put animals there.
In other words, the cattle are technically trespassing, but so are the elephants, as they are owned by a private game reserve. But this crisis isn't entirely of the elephants' making either. During a drought in 2016, the herd ventured onto the eastern shore and became trapped there when the dam levels increased again. Malcolm Thompson represents an association of private landowners in the Pongola Jozini region.
It's a very inaccessible area, despite the fact that we have tried many things over the years with KZN Wildlife and tried other efforts to get those animals captured or moved. Unfortunately, that has failed for various reasons.
With tensions mounting in the community and the elephant's very survival in the balance, stakeholders met in November last year. 𝗶𝗀𝗶𝘀 is a community representative. He was at the meeting and heard firsthand the dire warning given by the locals. Their intentions were clear.
The threat was that they will sort the problem out themselves. And soon after that, towards the end of November, beginning of December, that's when actually the guns started ringing.
How did you get to a point where, one, a family has lost a child, and two, on the other hand, you've now got people shooting elephants?
Communities are not trained in looking after and how to deal with these wild animals. I don't know how legally armed people are, but I can tell you that people do have access to weapons if they need to, and they actually can be quite stubborn when they've got a particular viewpoint that they want to defend. Just as they said about the issue of elephants must go.
Since November, there have been reports of at least 9 elephants killed. Suzette takes me through the images of their slaughter.
That really hurts me. How do you think this elephant died? It must have been...
This is horrific. You can see this is horrible.
And this is the type of scenes that makes me cry myself to sleep at night.
Yet, amid the desperation, the authorities were slow to react.
We asked that they give us the time to look at it. We said we will be engaging together with the private sector. We request that they exercise patience.
But they feel that they have exercised patience. For 7 years they've been speaking about this issue. Nobody was listened to them. It had to take elephants being shot, it had to take the death of Mr. Nyawo's child for somebody to now stand up, and media attention. Why should it take media? Why should it take death?
I mean, there is a history of the steps that we've taken. The problem is that it has not been easy to get permits, as there are issues within Swaziland to get permits. We were willing and have always been willing to make sure that we find the means by which we move those elephants as quick as we can.
Again, the elephants became trapped 7 years ago. While 𝗀𝗵𝗶𝘀 is working on it, the herd is being thinned out. The carcasses are being burnt or covered with rocks to prevent vultures from giving away locations, while the most valuable tusks are being removed in most cases.
When people killed wild animals, they would also take some parts of those animals. So ivory didn't become important now, as we know it. It has always been important. If it was indeed ivory poaching, why would they then kill elephants without tusks?
But others here disagree. What may have started as an act of desperation and self-preservation is not the only thing at play here. This area has a history of criminality. This is not subsistence hunting. Some believe there is a deeper, more sinister element at work, motivated by greed.
There's something else happening in that area, and the elephant and the cattle are being used as a catalyst to try and drive whatever they're trying to achieve on that side.
It's not just elephants being hunted. Hippos and crocodiles are taken out too. There's also large-scale illegal gill net fishing and rhino poaching. The Eastern Shore has become a free-for-all. Baron Lottering is an anti-poaching security expert.
You know, anything that's got the slightest value for money, it would be taken out there. It's organized crime, you know, it's cross-border crime. There's huge amounts of money to be made.
Has it evolved and has it become more serious over time?
Now there's more violence involved, there's more firearms involved, groups are bigger. A couple of months ago, a policeman was shot in the face with a high-caliber weapon.
While the policeman survived the attack and is still undergoing reconstructive surgery, it's clear the syndicates behind the criminality will not let anyone get in the way. Intimidation is rife, and even informants are fearful.
They also know that their lives are worth nothing if it comes out that they've been giving us information.
Private landowners invest hundreds of millions of rands in land, infrastructure and employment, but bear the brunt of criminality.
We've experienced a number of cancellations already. People are now starting to wonder whether it's safe to come to visit our reserves.
While the private landowners have security teams patrolling their land, the criminality is entirely limited to the notorious East Bank.
And then on top of the mountain is where the three countries come together, Mozambique, South Africa and Swaziland. And so if they commit a crime here and law enforcement is onto them, they can either decide to go across into Mozambique or they can go to Swaziland.
Finding a solution has never been more urgent, as criminal elements appear to take advantage of conflict on the eastern shores.
It's spreading like a wildfire, especially after you've been hunting the top species, you've been shooting on tourists, and you're still scot-free. This whole area currently, I believe, is under threat if we don't react and start governing and protect these areas.
𝗀𝗵𝗋𝗀 needs to take the lead. It's 𝗀𝗵𝗋𝗀's land and it's their duty.
When we speak to the community within that northern KwaZulu-Natal area, fingers are pointed at you.
𝗀𝗵𝗋𝗀 has been blamed because 𝗀𝗵𝗋𝗀 is responsible for biodiversity. But taking responsibility over that is not making miracles. We work within a constrained space to make sure that we resolve their issues and do as best as we can to do that. And sometimes that falls short.
The new plan is to move the elephants during the winter months and increase police patrols, but time is running out.
If this had to be lost to conservation and to ecotourism, it would be a very sad day, not just for KZN and our community, but for South Africa as a whole.
But for some, the loss is much more personal. As we finished our interview, Nyawo kneels again at his son's grave.
Lungile. Sesibahamba ke manje. Sala kahle.